Welcome to the Wild and Fierce podcast. We are your hosts, Amber
and Johanna. We're here to explore womanhood through real, raw, and unfiltered conversations.
Please remember this podcast is for education only and not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare professional.
Let's dive in.
Y'all, I am so excited for this episode. This is my first time behind the mic in a long time, between Johanna being on maternity leave and I took about 6 weeks off from really heavy content creation, podcasting, and honestly a big majority of my business because my sister had a baby. So my childcare was gone. My parents were down in Arizona. I went down to Arizona for a while. So we're just getting back into the swing of things. So this episode is actually inspired by my sister. So I went and spent a little bit of time down in Arizona with her, just helping her recover postpartum. And the whole time I just kept thinking, gosh, so much of the stuff that I know now, I wish I would have known during my first postpartum experience. So for any of you that don't know, I have 2 kiddos. My oldest is 6, which is crazy, and my youngest is almost 3. So back when I had my oldest, I didn't know like 90% of the stuff that I know now. And I was also one of the first of all my friends to have babies, so there wasn't anyone that I could run to for advice or guidance. So thankfully, I know a lot more now, and I'm going to share it all with y'all. So the way that this episode is going to work is I'm going to break it down into just like some general universal postpartum truths first. Then I'm going to break it down by vaginal birth and then by C-section. I have had both myself. I had a C-section with my oldest and a VBAC which is vaginal birth post cesarean, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, with my second. So I have experience with both, which will make this kind of cool. So we will go over both of those, and then I'll just give you some general tips at the bottom of products that I would recommend getting and things like that. So let's dive into it. Okay, so just some universal stuff immediately postpartum that like I said, wish I would have known. And the first one, as silly as it sounds, is you will still look pregnant after you have your baby. For some women, this is just a few days. For some women, it's a few weeks. For some women, it's even a few months. Your body takes time to adjust so there no longer being a baby in there. So during pregnancy, obviously our uterus grows, we put on a little bit of weight, there's water weight, there's all your organs move, your abdominals stretch, everything changes. So it is perfectly and completely normal to still look pregnant after you have your baby. Again, it's going to take a different range of time depending on your body, your genetics, how you carried your baby, what your health and fitness routine is like, all of those things. But it is perfectly normal to still look pregnant, okay? Second one, you are going to bleed quite a bit for quite a while. This was one thing that I did not understand all that well. Ironically, so I had a C-section with my oldest. And so for some reason in my head, I was like, I've had a C-section, like I won't have all of the bleeding. Well, you still do. You still bleed with a C-section or vaginal birth. And it's quite a bit. So I had heard like on the internet back then when I was Googling, oh, it'll be like a heavy period. Well, it is, but for some women, it's a pretty dang heavy period, especially if you're someone that either A, has always had really, really light or inconsistent periods, or if you've been on birth control, whether that's an IUD or something like that where you don't have a period, it can be a little bit shocking when it comes to postpartum bleeding. So most women on average bleed for about 3 to 6 weeks. With my daughter, I bled the entire 6 weeks. With my son, I maybe bled for 3. So every birth is different, but just keep that in mind. Bleeding is normal. It's actually called lochia. It's Lochia is the fancy word for postpartum bleeding. And the colors will change over the weeks of how long you bleed. So it starts out really dark red, like very fresh blood, to pink, and then eventually brown. The other thing to keep in mind with bleeding is if you're having anything like big clots, so they usually say like bigger than a golf ball, or if you're soaking more than a pad per hour, or if activity is increasing bleeding, that's a good sign to either slow down a little bit, call your provider, or just really tune into your body and figure out what it's trying to tell you. So if you are exercising too heavy, too hard, too much, that can increase bleeding, and just a really good indication to, okay, take it a little bit easier. But if you're having really big clots, soaking more than a pad per hour, call your doctor. Okay, now the reason that this bleeding happens, which I also think is important to know, is when we have a baby, we have our beautiful organ, the placenta, right? When the placenta detaches from the uterus, it leaves behind about a plate-sized wound where the placenta was. So the bleeding is from that wound and everything trying to heal. Your uterus is also trying to get everything out that was your beautiful home for your baby. So that's why we bleed for so long. Okay, moving on. We're going to talk about when your milk comes in. So if you are choosing to breastfeed, usually around day 3 postpartum, your milk will come in. You start out with what's called colostrum in the beginning, which is the liquid gold, the really sticky kind of thick milk that's darker in color. And then around day 3, your true milk comes in. It can be quicker with subsequent births. So I've had many clients say it took longer with my first, it was much quicker with others, but typically it's around day 3. The sensation can be different from one woman to the other. Like most things, but we explain it as engorgement. So you may wake up one morning and have just a really heavy, dense fullness, sometimes tingling, sometimes a little bit painful feeling, like your skin feels very, very stretched. And if you were to touch your boobs, they're like rock hard. That's what we call engorgement. This is a sign that your milk has come in. So don't panic if you wake up. I've had clients message me and be like, oh my God, do I have mastitis? What is this? And typically, that's not the case. It's just that your milk has come in. So around day 3, typically. All right. Your body as a whole will be sore. Like labor, birth, pregnancy. It's the hardest marathon you've ever done in your life. So it is perfectly okay to be sore, to be tired, to need to rest. You should rest, to sleep. Uterine cramping, also in this whole realm of how your body feels, uterine cramping is very normal postpartum as well. Think like really intense menstrual cramps. Some people even compare them to like contractions, depending on how your body perceives pain. And they do spike with breastfeeding. So for many women, when you breastfeed, the cramping gets worse. So you can expect that, just some general body aches and pain, and then uterine cramping as well is very common. All right, emotional and hormonal. Giving birth, the next day to 2 days afterwards, even up to the week, we'll say about a week postpartum, your body is going to go through the most ginormous hormonal crash and roller coaster that you've ever been through in your life. And I do not say this to scare you. I just want you to understand how big of a change it is. And that's one thing I don't think I understood the first time, was how powerful those emotions were going to be. I've had people compare it to coming off of like 3 packs of birth control all at one time, how much your body goes through. So just be prepared, give yourself grace, have a good support system to know that hormonally, you're going to feel a little out of whack for a couple of days. Okay. Sleep deprivation also makes that a lot harder. You're obviously taking care of a newborn. The whole sleep when baby sleeps, I think, is the most useless advice in the world. But I do really encourage you to ask for help. The more rest you can get, especially during this big hormonal roller coaster, the better off you're going to be. Obviously, there's a big difference too between postpartum blues and like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. So obviously I always talk to professionals if you feel like you're heading in that direction. I've been there. I've had pretty significant postpartum depression with both kiddos, probably teetering on postpartum depression with my second also. So therapy is good. Get yourself a therapist if you don't have one, if you feel like you're heading in that direction. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about in overall view before I break down into vaginal and C-section specific is the isolation that you can feel early postpartum. Really just postpartum in general, honestly. And I think part of this does depend on maybe the time of year that you give birth. So with my daughter, for example, I had her in the summer. So it was bright and warm and sunny. I was able to get outside, go do things. There was activities, there was stuff to do, versus my son I had in the middle of winter. So it was dark and cold. There was less going on. So I felt really isolated postpartum with him, a lot different than I did with my daughter. So find your village, people. Find people that can love on you, that can help you, that can support you. Plan little activities, plan little walks, find mom groups, whatever it is to make you feel less alone. I promise you it'll make a big difference. You're pregnant and everyone keeps asking, are you ready? But honestly, you don't even know what ready means. Your doctor keeps mentioning your pelvic floor, but doesn't explain what it actually does. Your birth class covers breathing techniques, but you're still confused when to push and when to wait. Your friends share horror stories that leave you more terrified than prepared. Meanwhile, here you are Googling how to write a birth plan at 2 a.m., wondering if you should ask for an epidural or try to go at it natural, and completely overwhelmed by conflicting advice about postpartum recovery. You want to feel confident walking into the delivery room, or maybe a home birth or a birth center. You want to understand what your body needs to be strong for labor. You want a birth plan that's actually useful, not just wishful thinking. And you definitely don't want to be blindsided by what comes after baby arrives. That's exactly why I created my birth prep and postpartum recovery course. This isn't just another generic birth class that treats all women the same. This is a step-by-step guide specifically designed for your female body and your unique birth experience. I'll walk you through exactly how to prepare your pelvic floor and core for birth, not with generic Kegels, but with targeted exercises that actually work. You'll learn how to create a birth plan that's flexible, but also powerful, and how to advocate for yourself when it matters most. Most importantly, you'll discover what postpartum recovery really looks like and how to set yourself up for the strongest comeback possible. Instead of feeling anxious and unprepared, you'll feel confident and empowered. Instead of hoping for the best, you'll know exactly what to expect and how to handle whatever comes your way. For just $79, you get lifetime access to everything you need to prepare for birth and beyond. That's less than what most people spend on baby gear that you'll use for only 6 months. Your birth experience matters, your recovery matters, and most importantly, you matter. Check the show notes for the link to purchase and transform your pregnancy from overwhelming to empowering today. All right, now we're going to break this down into vaginal delivery because there are differences between vaginal and cesarean for sure. So, what to expect with a vaginal birth? Perineal tearing is very, very common. I know we all hear like, let's avoid vaginal tearing. Some people get lucky and they do. It's typically not with first births. It's typically with subsequent deliveries. But if you are someone that has some tearing, I did with my second, there's a couple things that you can do to be more prepared about it. So one is having certain products at home to help prepare you. Things like padsicles where you take pads and use witch hazel and you freeze them. Those can be really helpful. Ice packs are amazing. They have long ones. Freedom Mom makes a really, really good one that you can put in your, let's say in your pants, in your underwear, in your pants, whatever you're wearing. Put it on your perineum. That can help a ton. Stitches typically dissolve within 2 to 3 weeks on their own. So you're not, unless it's rare cases, having to go in and get stitches out. They will heal on their own. Perineal sprays, whether you do a medicated or like a more natural version. Earth Mama makes one that I absolutely love. It's more of a natural one. The hospital will usually give you, oh gosh, the name of it's going to escape me. Y'all will know what I'm talking about. There is a hospital one that they almost always give you. It works well too. It's just not as natural. So pick your poison, whatever you guys like. So that's in regard to stitches. Now, the next section, which I'm going to go to, is your first postpartum poop. And this will play into the stitching part as well. So it's fitting that this comes after this. Taking your first postpartum bowel movement can be very scary, especially if you are having perineal tearing. So I recommend doing what's called splinting, where you take a piece of rolled up toilet paper, okay, hold it on your hand. You find the space between your vagina and your butthole. That's your perineum. That's where the tearing is going to be. And you splint. So you hold the toilet paper on that area with just gentle pressure to help support that tissue while you have a bowel movement, okay? You don't need to push super hard, just gentle support. This will help a lot. I also highly recommend a squatty potty. Y'all should all have a squatty potty, but that will make a really, really big difference as well. And then do your best to stay on top of your stool softeners, your hydration, your magnesium powder, whatever you're doing to help things flow a little bit better, because the last thing you want is to get constipated. So use the stool softener, keep things flowing, eat your fiber, all those good things so things keep moving. Okay. Hemorrhoids are also pretty common postpartum. So a lot of the things I already mentioned, the witch hazel, Tux pads can feel really, really nice. Sitz baths, if you guys have never heard of those, I definitely recommend getting a sitz bath. Hemorrhoids do typically improve over time on their own, but the more pelvic floor relaxation, the more fiber, the more stool softener, the less bearing down you can do when you're going to the bathroom. So again, using things like the squatty potty and staying hydrated, the better off you're going to be. Okay, I already mentioned padsicles, so I'm not going to go into that again, but ice really will be your best friend in those early weeks. Most people don't tend to like heat. Ice tends to feel really, really good. When it comes to the pelvic floor, specifically postpartum with a vaginal birth, there can be some swelling down there, also some pelvic heaviness. Leaking is also really common and normal until 6 weeks postpartum. So if you're experiencing leaking, whether that is urine or feces, that can be pretty common in the first 6 weeks because everything is just so dang tired and so fatigued. So do not panic if you experience some of that in the early weeks postpartum. It's pretty common. If you start noticing a really big increase in pelvic heaviness or a really big increase in leaking and or bleeding, this can be a sign that you're doing a little bit too much. So if you're going on really long walks, if you're even just around cleaning the house, baby wearing, whatever it is, and you're noticing a lot of those symptoms, it's a pretty good indication that you need to just rest a little bit more and not push so hard. Okay, so those are most of the things you can expect with a vaginal birth specifically. I'm going to go through a real quick list here of things I do recommend specifically for vaginal, and then we'll jump into C-section. So peri-bottle, hospitals will typically give you one. I don't love the one most hospitals give because they don't have theirs is like just a straight bottle. I like the one that curves. It's easier to use. So I would recommend getting a couple. I like to have one in my shower and both my bathrooms just to make my life easy. So get some peri-bottles, perineal spray, really, really helpful, ice pack or padsicles, some stool softener or magnesium powder, whatever you want to use. High-waisted underwear. One thing that I totally wish I would have used also is period panties. So if you don't want to deal with like a ton of pads and stuff like that, I've had quite a few friends and clients just love period panties. So you could do something like that. A sitz bath setup, and then a squatty potty will be your best friend specifically for vaginal birth. All right, let's jump into C-section. So the first thing that I want to let y'all know is C-section is, one, not the easy way out, and two, it is a major abdominal surgery, and it sometimes get treated like not a big deal, but it is a very big deal. So just keep that in mind. It is a major surgery. Minimum recovery is 4 to 6 weeks, but realistically it's a lot longer. Minimum recovery meaning like you're more like a functioning human by 4 to 6 weeks. That does not mean that your pelvic floor or your abdominals or your core are healed, just that your scar is starting to heal. And during a C-section, they cut through 7 layers of tissue. 7 layers. That's a lot. So it takes a lot of time for your body to rebuild that tissue back together. So give it time, give it grace. I tell most of my C-section clients like 12 to 18 months until you're like really, really, really feeling strong and good with post C-section. Some are a little bit earlier, but it does take a while. So keep that in mind. Okay. So just like we talked about splinting the perineum with a vaginal birth, I recommend splinting your C-section scar with a C-section. So this means using something like a pillow, a rolled up towel, something that you can hold on your belly if you like cough or sneeze. Sometimes you even need to stand up. I'll have clients hold that on their belly and then take a big exhale and think of gently, cue an emphasis on gently engaging their core, and squeezing that pillow on the scar can just make you feel a lot more secure and safe as you're getting around, moving, coughing, sneezing, whatever it is. It helps a lot with pain management. Okay. Laughing is another good example too. You can hold it on there as well. The other thing with the C-section is I do recommend postpartum belly wraps for a C-section. That is different than a contouring corset, really restrictive band. A belly band is something that you can easily breathe and expand into. It still allows your body movement, but it gives you gentle compression. I always tell clients like a gentle hug. Those I am perfectly okay with. They can be really helpful post C-section, just give you, again, a little extra support, but you should be able to do a full breath and your abdominals and stuff and your belly not be restricted. So keep that in mind with the belly bands. Okay, pain medication. There's no shame in using pain medication post C-section. Like I said, your body just went through a major surgery. So I'm not going to go into what I'd recommend for medicine. That's up to your doctor, but just know there is no shame in needing to use pain medication. Okay. I already mentioned this earlier, but you will still bleed with a C-section. So just like we do with a vaginal birth, you will still have lochia and bleeding postpartum with a C-section. You may also experience what we call a postpartum or C-section shelf, where your top tissue kind of folds over the C-section scar. This can be reduced substantially over time with core strengthening, C-section scar massage, and desensitizing, but that is something that I like women to be aware of so they're not shocked and think something's wrong. A lot of the times when scars start to form, they don't form in like nice one straight line like we would like to think. They more form like a spider web type. So they tug and pull in different directions, and that can pull the tissue down a little bit. So I encourage all of my clients to do scar desensitizing around 2 to 3 weeks postpartum. So this means taking gentle objects like a cotton ball or a Q-tip or a piece of cloth and gently rubbing above and below the scar to start working some of those nerves back and bringing sensation back to the scar, and just getting comfortable with touching your scar. So that you can start around 2 to 3 weeks. And then once you are cleared by your provider, so typically around 6 weeks, you can actually start C-section scar massage, where you massage on, above, and below the scar. And one really big helpful thing with C-section scars is to do silicone tape. Again, don't do this till after you've been cleared by your doctor, but you can put silicone tape on the scar. And this has had really good evidence coming out now that it can help a lot with scar reduction and just healing in general. So you can buy that on Amazon. It's just, you can just literally look up scar tissue silicone tape. So that can be really, really helpful as well. Another kind of silly thing that I, again, wish somebody would have told me is gas pains post C-section are brutal. When they do your C-section, they actually push air through your system and the air stays. So chewing gum can be really, really helpful to get things moving, to help get that gas to pass, just getting up and walking a little bit. But don't hold it in. The more you get the gas out, the better off you're going to feel, because it's not fun in those early hours post C-section. Obviously, you're not allowed to drive for 2 weeks post C-section, just a lot of times because you're on medications, plus you're just in kind of a vulnerable state with such a big wound. So no driving for 2 weeks. That's an important one. Scar mobility, we already mentioned. I will put a link in the show notes also for both a scar mobility and a scar desensitizing that you guys can look at for those as well. Return to exercise will be slower for a C-section birth compared to a vaginal birth, so keep that in mind. I usually tell clients to give it about a 3-week increase in length. Again, it's a major surgery. It takes time, so just keep that in mind. All right, C-section must-haves. So high-waisted underwear that sit above the incision. I cannot emphasize this enough. Having stuff that sits right on your incision line is so uncomfortable. So having things that are loose, not super tight, that sit up above your scar will be super helpful. Loose and soft clothing, pillows for splinting, or you can use a rolled up towel. Stool softener, still same as vaginal birth, really important. Pain medication, whatever you choose to do, and then realistic expectations with your healing, because it does take time. All right, y'all. Now we're going to jump into red flags for postpartum recovery and when to seek help, because these are important to know too. So for everyone, no matter, and these are going to be for everybody in general, like this isn't specific to vaginal or C-section. A temperature above 100.3, 100.4, call your doctor. These can be signs of infection. Discharge that's anything other than red, pink, or brown. So if you're having, especially if you're a C-section scar, odor is another really important thing to pay attention to. If you're having odor either in your C-section scar or vaginally, watching out for that. Any abnormal discharge, letting people know. Pain that's not relieved by pain medication. If you are just in excruciating pain and your pain meds are not cutting it, also contact your provider. Saturating more than one pad per hour. I already mentioned this. Clots larger than a golf ball. And then a severe headache can indicate postpartum blood pressure issues. So if you have a headache that's just not going away, getting worse, definitely call your provider. And then difficulty breathing and or chest pain. Really, really important. I know I already mentioned before postpartum anxiety and depression, but I can't tell you how often I hear women say, well, it's probably just postpartum blues. Well, oh, that's just the hormonal crash. And while both those things do exist, postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety are also very, very real. So it's okay to need help. If you've crossed past the line of like, I'm tearful, I'm overwhelmed, and it's not resolving in a few weeks, you're probably not just in baby blues. You're probably more into the postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression realm. So just know that it's very normal. I shouldn't say it's very normal. It's very common, and there is help out there. So don't feel any shame around needing help with either one of those things. All right, y'all. I have just a few other little to save your sanity items that I would recommend for people if you were going to be newly postpartum. Again, that I wish I would have done. One is freezer meals for postpartum. So while you're pregnant, either order a food service, have family do a food train, or you just prep a bunch of meals and freeze them to have in your freezer will make such a game changer for you guys postpartum versus having to feel like you have to cook. That's huge. I also really recommend, especially when it comes to the hospital, bring a squatty potty with you, bring your own pillow, bring your own blanket, bring your own snacks, things to make you feel comfortable, things that you don't need postpartum. You don't need bounce back pressure. Your body will heal at its own timeline. You don't need to feel pressured to bounce back. If you don't want visitors in the hospital or even at home, that's okay. Like, you can set the boundary of when you want people to come visit. If you do something like a food train or friends want to come, have them leave stuff on your front porch. Or if they want to come, give them specific time of when they can come and how long they can stay. This is your precious time postpartum. So don't feel like you have to host other people. That's one thing I was not good at with my first pregnancy, and I was much better at the second time around. So keep those things in mind. And I think we covered it all, guys. I think I gave you all of the things that I wish I would have known about postpartum, both vaginal and C-section. So, couple last minute hitters that I'll give you guys. You're doing better than you think. The more prepared you are going into postpartum, the better off you're going to be. If you're already postpartum and listening to this, it won't be like this forever. It's going to get easier. Keep going. If you need help, if you need guidance, seek out the professionals, whether that's myself or a mental health counselor. Yeah, we're all here to support you. Postpartum is not easy, but it's beautiful, and you're not broken. You're not fragile. You're not failing. You just grew and birthed a human, or you're going to soon, and we're all cheering for you. All right, that's all I got for you guys. We will see you next week. And if you guys liked this episode, as always, please do us a huge favor and go rate it, give it a review, and share it with a friend. And then, like I mentioned, I will drop those resources in the show notes. All right. Appreciate y'all. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you for hanging out with us on the Wild and Curious podcast. If you loved this conversation, we'd be so grateful if you left a review and shared it with a friend who needs to hear this.
And if you really loved it, take a screenshot, share it on your stories, and tag us. We'd love to see it. Until next time, stay wild, stay fierce, and keep owning your journey.